Oh, he is shifted now. Uh, it's being live streamed. Okay, so 266. And so both this is a couple
Yes.
that has been in this field for more than 30 years. Uh,
Oh,
Ushan, unmute yourself and just tell us how many years now?
Yes, Father. Good evening. I completed 30 years of sobriety in the month of November.
Oh, wow. that's, that's tremendous. Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Okay, who's the anchor here? Rashna, are you the anchor?
Sir, it's Abu Zaid. Uh, Abu Zaid, we can start.
Okay. Good to go, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So before we start, there are a few general instructions for all the participants. Please keep your camera on throughout the webinar and make sure you are on mute. There will be a dedicated question and answer session after the webinar, so you may clear your queries. I would now like to welcome our honorable speaker, PCGT trustees, district coordinators, and program officers of NSS Mumbai City, and all the participants who have joined us virtually through Zoom and YouTube for this webinar on substance abuse. Let me give you a brief about the organizers of this webinar, starting with PCGT. PCGT is a registered trust founded in 2002 by late Mr. B.G. Deshmukh, Mr. Julio Ribeiro, and Dr. R.K. Anand, with an objective to promote good governance and transparency with public participation and involvement of the youth. India is a nation with 60% of the population under the age of 30 years, and the future of the nation rests on them. A well-educated youth with emphasis on ethical values of honesty and integrity will be an asset to the nation. PCGT undertook the program of Youth for Governance, or YFG, in 2012, and since then has been trying to motivate the youth across Mumbai city colleges to be a part of the movement and promoting good governance. Speaking of youth, NSS has always been the go-to partner for PCGT in motivating the youth towards good governance and social activities. The motto of NSS, not me, but you, reflects the essence of democratic living and upholds the need of selfless service. NSS helps the students develop appreciation for another person's point of view and also show consideration to other living beings. The philosophy of NSS is well doctrined in this motto, which underlines on the belief that the welfare of an individual is ultimately dependent on the welfare of the society as whole, and therefore the NSS volunteers shall strive for well-being of the society. NSS projects not only include blood donation camps, tree plantation, street plays, assistance in disaster management, but also other activities such as vaccination drive during COVID, Shramdan awareness campaigns. Now, I would like to invite our Chairman Emeritus of PCGT, Mr. Julio Ribeiro, sir, for a welcome address. So,
I think he is not in the meeting currently.
He
should we
was.
wait or should we proceed?
There must be a connection issue from his side.
Yes.
I think Sudhir is having internet issues. Shall we proceed, Father Joe?
Yeah, I think we could proceed. Uh,
Now,
can I have the sharing this share screen for me? Is it
yes,
okay?
I'll just quickly
Yes, sir.
introduce you. Now, let me
Okay.
introduce our honorary speaker for the day, Reverend Father Joseph H. Pereira. Reverend Father Joseph H. Pereira is the founder of the Kripa Foundation, which is devoted to care, support, and rehabilitation of those affected by chemical dependency and HIV and AIDS, known to all as Father Joe, and many others as the singing priest. He offers not to highlight his academic qualifications of masters in psychology and philosophy from University of Bombay, licentiate in divinity, theology from Bombay and Pune, certifications in counseling theory and practice, and expertise from Hazelden Institute of Minnesota, USA. Father Joe is the national coordinator in India for World Community for Christians Meditation, or WCCM, and a consultant member of various high-level committees constituted by the Government of India, Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. He is a member of the New York Academy of Sciences. Between 1987 till 2015, various international workshops have been conducted by Father Joe in various cities throughout the world. Those perceptions and applications have resulted in various awards in the field of drug abuse care, health sciences, and social services, like Priyadarshini National Award in 1989, Peristokia Sanjeevani Award 1990, Anti-Narcotic Council of India Award for Best Establishment in the Field 1994, Sayogi Foundation Award 1995, Ati Vashisht Seva Medal of the College of Chess Physicians 1997, International Yoga Journal Karam Yogi of the Year Award 2003, Expert to the National Institute of Social Defense, Government of India 2005, and Christian Chamber of Commerce Award for Excellence in the Field of Social Work 2007. Awarded the Padma Shri in the field of social work by the Government of India 2009. Lifetime Achievement National Award 2014 by an outstanding individual professional at the hands of Honorable President of India, Shri Pranab Mukherjee. Despite all this, Father Joe is ever ready to listen all who approach him. This includes the huge number of general community, patients, clients of the foundation in India and abroad, and not least of all, his large organizational staff members, not less than 85% of whom are wounded healers in their own paths of recovery and spiritual growth. We have Julio Rivera sir with us. I invite him for his welcome address.
Well, thank you, Abu Zaid. And you have already said much about Father, introduced him. I don't want to take too much time. I just want to mention that PCGT has a MOU with Mumbai University, and one of the conditions in that MOU is that we should every year arrange a talk on drug addiction and how it should be tackled. And we found no other better person than Father Joe. He has always been willing to speak to the students whenever PCGT has called him. And this is not the first time he is responding to our request. Father Joe runs an NGO. Kripa Foundation, which every year he has a huge function in St. Andrew's College. I've been attending it myself every year, except the last 2 years because of this pandemic. And I know the great work that he has been doing. And he has been doing it not only in Mumbai, he has spread it all over India, particularly in the Northeast. And he has used also his skill and his knowledge of Iyengar yoga, of which he is a qualified instructor. And Father Joe has. I'll leave the stage to you. Please take over. This is the largest student registration that we have received. We have these meetings every week almost at different colleges, and I think this one has been arranged. Is it by St. Andrews? I'm not very sure, but whichever college has arranged it, I think has done us a great favor. It's very topical. And after the Ryan case, everybody thinks about it. So now I'll ask Father Joe to speak.
Thank you, Julio. And I'm very happy to be here with you. I just want to start my, I want to share the screen. So let me do one thing. Can you see the screen?
No.
Are you able to see the screen?
No.
Okay, then let me do one thing. I just have to go to share the screen. And what I'm getting is, okay, let me just, I need to, okay. Sorry about this delay because I don't have the expertise to do this, and I want to, okay, and again, you're not able to see, right?
No, sir. Sir, you can click on the share screen button, which is in the middle of the screen on the
Exactly.
Zoom app.
Yeah, exactly. So let me go back to, I want to get back there. I'm trying to, this is the problem. Are you not able to see it still?
No, sir.
Okay. Sorry, I'll get it. I'll get it. Just a minute. Let me just get back and then get in. Okay, share the screen. Are you able to see this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I am extremely happy, privileged to be with so many young people who I would say perhaps have escaped the scourge of addiction. I say escaped because there is a tremendous rise of addiction all over the world. And during the lockdown, it even worsened. There are various reasons for that. But I just want to share with you today that most of you who are going to hear me, and after me, I'm going to ask two people who have been associated with this work. They are now parents, but they have gone through this whole experience of brokenness and pain in their youth. They experienced this, and they will share with you what this journey is all about, the way to addiction and how to get out of this addiction. And their names are Bhushan Vaidya and Prachi Vaidya. They will join us. They will join us after this. So here we are. I say we may be fortunate. Why? Because we have seen certain roots of people getting into addiction. Every time I see a person coming into treatment or asking, or their parents ask me to help the boy or the girl who has gone into addiction, I always try to explore if this is the first time in their in their generation, and it's never the first time. There have been cases of addiction, and if not in the parents, in the siblings of the parents, the grandparents, siblings of the grandparents, and that is a very big factor. But be careful. I don't say this is hereditary. No, there is a genetic predisposition. No, anuvanshikata, jisko hum kehte hai. I don't know, sometimes I think I should speak in Hindi. If everybody can follow English, excellent. But the second area, because of which some people, some youth get addicted, is the kind of behavior factors. I will explain this. And then finally, there is also the element of the environment. Where are you coming from? Take a good look on parivar, on your home. Is your home a troubled home? Can you say that you have come from a happy family? It's a big question that all of us have to ask. Now, I am talking to people, most of you who have been involved in NSS and this beautiful forum of governance, you are therefore probably you have escaped all this. You have not had a troubled home, or even if you have had a troubled home, you have had some support, which I will come to and tell you how you can help your friends, your companions who are not as fortunate as you are. Maybe some of them have lost their parent. One of their single parent, bringing up a child always has a major problem. But then the biggest problem that we have seen is absence of a father. Now, absence of a father may be because the father himself is into addiction and not really interested in the family, and only the mother is looking after. So the second thing which we have to look at is the behavior choices that we make. What is it? Parents today don't have time for their children. So they say, okay, you take this money, enjoy yourself. I'll see you when I come back in the night. And that is what children grab. They say, I want, and I want, and I want. And that becomes what is called king baby syndrome. They never can take a no. And I have seen parents giving and giving only to get rid of their children from their being around them. So, this is a culture that has developed a self-gratification mode. And may I tell you this, that this self-gratification is sometimes fatal. There is a 30% rise of suicides in Canada. They said it was a 30% rise of suicide between the age of 15 to 30. Think of it. Most of them were victims of addiction. So we have to take a good look at this. And, today when I talk about affluence, do you know today in India, and particularly in metros like here, everybody is showing off their wealth. Hardly they get a little money from the Gulf or wherever, and they are going around in latest mobiles, fast cars, and now get ready for a very big component in addiction is the sexual appetite. And you will be surprised that with changing of partners is absolutely an addiction and attraction to the opposite sex. There is another factor here, which is expensive shopping. And that itself can become a very big problem because sometimes people don't afford it, but because their classmates, because their companions are flouting latest clothes, designer clothes, they want it, they demand it from their parents. So the weekend programs also has increased, and sometimes you will be surprised that even during the lockdown, families used to encourage their children to be together. And this is what happened, that in weekend programs, they got introduced to drinks. And how do you get addicted? You know, in 10 people who are drinking, and sometimes drinking beyond their capacity or just drinking for a high, in 10 people, maybe 9 people will say, okay, now lockdown is over, I must get back to my books, I must get back to my business, and can quit the habit. But one person will definitely get stuck. Who is that person? That person, as I said earlier, may be having a genetic predisposition. And so when you get exposed repeatedly, when you have that genetic predisposition, you are a sitting duck to become an addict. Some more pictures of all kinds of addiction. And mind you, there is one little square there which said, when God becomes a drug. And we are experiencing this in a very bad way. You know, God addiction destroys the very core of democracy. It destroys governance in so many ways. You cannot be self-righteous of whichever religion you belong to. We are all one in a country like India. And so not only in India, every religion has that particular, there are some people who become God addicts. God becomes a drug for them, and they become self-righteous about it. So as young people, please be aware of it, because we can easily get roped in, and we may think that it is a better addiction than drugs. Certainly not. This is where we can understand why. Why do people go into addiction? It is an I-it relationship. Relationship with a chemical, relationship with behaviors such as gambling, relationship with sex, relationship with what I call is mobile and Facebooks and all that. I have a case of a 13-year-old girl who was addicted to Facebook, to just simple, nothing to do with pornography. That's another story. A tremendous amount of rise in pornography. I got a street child into recovery. And when he came into our center, the other boys were telling me, look at him. He's all the time watching pornography. So, you know, there are so many ways wherever self-gratification comes in, you are likely to keep on repeating that self-gratification. And that is an I-it relationship. But we are made for love. And love is an I-thou relationship. I had a slide, but I think it's not here. I-thou relationship is two ways. One is with the God of your understanding. If you have not found the God of your understanding, the higher power, it is impossible for you to get out of any kind of addiction, any kind of ailment. Ultimately, the healing is only by God. Even Patanjali says so. Prayatna Shaitilya, you may make a lot of effort, but ultimately, Ananta Samapattibhyam, you have to recognize that you have to be in touch with God. Krishna tells Arjuna, don't depend on Prakriti, the materialistic world. You can only overcome the battles of life if you come to me and encounter me as a Purusha, I-thou relationship. And that is the answer to this. How does it all begin? It begins just with the use of it. Then you start misusing it. Then it goes into abuse. And finally, dependency. Very gradual sliding into this. Very gradual. So first time there is an experimental and social use, occasionally, few times. And who are the ones? Friends. Tell me who are your friends and I'll tell you who you are. Why? because I'm curious. People tell me, you don't do this. You are a nerd. So peer pressure. Then sometimes people go out for together and they are having fun. They are having adventure. And you don't realize that they can fall prey to the drug. Second, this is misuse, regular use. Sometimes people say, I've had a very heavy week. Let me have something to use at the weekend. Now, I'm telling you a story of an Indian family that settled in Canada. And the boy who was 25 years sober here started doing this, saying that, every weekend, I'm going to use the weekend. Today, he's once again back a full-blown addict. So, and then the reasons are always, I've got too much of stress, or I'm bored, I'm lonely, my girlfriend left me, my boyfriend left me, I'm emotionally down. Then comes the stage of abuse. Then I start doing it several times a week, not just on the weekend. Friends also that sell drugs to ensure personal supply. And there are so many of them roaming around in the campuses. You know them. You can identify them. Can we stand up to this evil around us and, stop allowing people, especially, I'm not a prejudiced person, but let me tell you that our girls today seem to be more and more vulnerable. I'm getting more girls into addiction because they fall prey. They manipulate their emotions, and they have a rare sense of guilt, and they long for companionship, but that is misused. Finally comes dependency, regular use, and they just want a drug come what may. And why? Because they want to run away from life. There are people, I have a Swiss young girl who came all the way from Zurich to India to really find an answer to her drugs. And one day I saw her cutting her wrists. They want to die. They are fed up of living. But what are these drugs? There are two types, medical and non-medical. And mind you, I want to tell you one thing, that you can, you really sometimes feel that they are necessary to treat an ailment, to prevent a disease, or to promote health. Yes. But always remember that even those medical drugs can be misused. I have so many doctors who use Fortwin and Pethidine, all these kind of medical stuff, and they become dependent on it. Of course, the non-medical are to alter the. Then there are depressant. I'll run quickly over this because you can teach me about drugs. Many of you can teach me and tell me that in our company there are people who are mostly using they say soft drugs. Hello, there is no such a thing as soft drugs. Oh, we only use weed. Well, let me tell you one thing. I have got so many weed users now become psychotic. So just as alcohol induces schizophrenia, weed and cannabis has brought about so many people into psychosis. And that's a very sad story. Here it is. You get these kind of, especially charas and ganja. And unfortunately, we have in some festivals, we distribute bhang. And I had a girl from Rajasthan. She did a very good recovery, went back, and on the day of Holi, she had bhang, and that was the end of her recovery. Because Kushan and Prachi will tell you that there is no cure for this ailment, but there is recovery. And they will explain to you what is that recovery. And they will also say that you have to be extremely careful that if you touch the first drink or the first drag, you will relapse. There is no way you can really control drinking or control your drug using. Never. And so why do we go into this? Sometimes people, as I said, they're called all kinds of names, and then they say, no, I can't come for that party because I don't fit in. I want to fit in. So, well, that's one reason. Some go into it to escape or to relax. Some are see, boredom is a very big factor. People easily get bored. And sometimes people are made to feel that they are that there are no more children, they are grown up, they can start smoking, they can also start taking a drag sometimes. And sometimes people who are angry because they have had some traumas in their life, they use drugs to rebel against it. So boredom and depression, and they think drugs are a solution. Of course, some people only use it as an experiment to feel good, out of curiosity, and wish to feel like an adult. But that is very sad because it invariably ends up in addiction. Now, vulnerability is very, very much to be looked at. You sometimes feel that I won't become an addict. So you don't perceive yourself as in danger. Why? Because you lack the knowledge and skills to protect yourself. So many young people who have already gone deep into addiction for 6-7 years. There is a girl who is smoking pot and doing the weed. And the parents were all lost, and they had no idea of how to get this person back to recovery. So what happens is that children today maintain some kind of balance, but there is no real balance. This girl, brilliant as she is, her companions have gone way up high. She has remained back. So that is enough to notice the damage that drugs can do. Traditional biases discourage discussions about drugs. In traditional family, I have a case of a person in Bangalore. Right now, they have come from Singapore to Bangalore, and here they are. They are not wanting to talk about anything about drugs, and so that drug is taboo for them. Then, so quietly, the children find their own friends to get into this. Then, sometimes identity confusion. Now, please don't misunderstand me. Earlier, this was even a crime to be a gay or a homosexual. Thank God that is no more. And even when Pope Francis was asked what he thinks about gays and homosexuals, he bluntly replied and said, "Who am I to judge?" That's it. We don't need to judge. But sometimes this kind of identity confusion has led people into addiction. I want to tell you, in Australia, there was a man who, after having a daughter, after having a good marriage, when the divorce took place, the guy turned gay. And strangely, I have seen in my experience, I'm only talking about the cases that came to me, I noticed that as soon as a person went heavily into gay behavior, there was a heavy leaning on cocaine. So that is another, one has to be very careful. And sometimes these kind of people are associated with the glamorous world. You know what I'm talking about. You have seen cases of this. So then we also have something, sometimes we are not developed enough to understand, and so we go by the impulses. Then transition from school to college, big one. As soon as a child gets the freedom to go to college without any stricture of coming back in time and all that, the trouble starts. So, and always there is the issues of experimentation and curiosity especially with in relationship to the gateway drugs, such as I call them gateway drugs, because nicotine today is a big one, and of course, cannabis, as I said, is a very big gateway drug. So, what comes by using drugs is that you develop a lot of medical problems and you develop mental illness. This is an absolute fact that gets more and more worsened by denial. And mental illness, it starts with ordinary, neurosis, but it always ends up with psychosis. It starts with some kind of a dual disorder if you're an alcoholic, and then it goes into full-blown schizophrenia. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You must be having some friends like that already. Some social and family problems. See, sense of belonging is a major factor that put our youth into dangerous situations. And education and work problems. I know a person who is whose family could not afford those 25 lakhs to send him to a higher education. Man got completely disheartened and went into addiction. So, there are so many issues, and there are also sometimes legal problems. If the parents are divorced and all that, those also come in the way. So, how can we overcome this? Let me not be only a person who is telling you how we go into it. Let me also suggest some things to come out of it and to prevent. See, this seminar is all about prevention. Prevention is better than cure. Even Patanjali says, Eyam dukkham anagatam. Avoid the misery and tragedy that takes place once you are a victim of addiction. Bhushan and Prachi will tell you that if you don't get on the program in time, you either lose your mind. In other words, you become insane, or you die a premature death. You know how many families come to me and say, Father, mar jata tha to acha tha. Abhi pagal ho gaya aur hum sabko pagal karta hai. So, it's a serious thing. So don't ever minimize the problem. Focus on long-term happiness rather than on short-term high. This is the first thing I tell people. Realize the dangers of drugs and say no to drugs. Right up from the start, no. Focus on activities which are more fulfilling, like build up a nice career and don't get discouraged. If you cannot be a doctor and engineer, there are so many other ways by which you can slowly rise. There are people who have chosen because of poverty just to be a musician and something and then gone, or just be an air hostess or a cabin crew person and then studied, and today they are doctors and lawyers. So, don't get discouraged. You can get your self-confidence high from doing well in your chosen fields. Indulge in activities that give you a natural high rock climbing, paragliding, etc. So, there are activities which can build up a high within you. And remember, because there is a holistic way, or there is a, let us say, there is an organic way of getting a high, and there is an inorganic way of getting high. So remember the list of successful people who have been destroyed by drugs. So many of them, and some famous people, we appreciated them because they were so gifted. But what happened? They went into addiction, alcoholism, and all kinds of things, and they are no more with us. Failure can be stepping stones to success, so it should not be an excuse for using drugs. Very often people get disheartened because they cannot go the way that they were planning to go. Don't worry. There will be a day, one day, when you'll be able to get your desired. I know in America, somebody got his PhD at the age of 60. So, there is always an opportunity. Realize that you can create your own buzz or happy feelings without the use of drugs. And there are so many nice ways of having that buzz. You can never look back at at a substance abusing episode with pride. Never. Bhushan and Prachi will tell you how we justified ourselves when we were using them. But, when you recall them, you really realize that you lost so much of life. So how can you help? Because as soon as you notice somebody not quite happy, not quite communicative, that's very likely the person must be in some addiction, but they will say, no, I'm not. So the denial factor is huge. There are some beautiful counselors in our institutions, loving people, not just giving technical advice, but caring for us. They would even care to visit us at home. They would even care to call our parents and talk to them, not to be so harsh. They would even manage to see that there is a addictive personality in the family. So there is always a helpful hand there. There is a anonymous helpline for not only Kripa Foundation. There are so many organizations that can help you. Never deal with yourself. There is one thing which you have to realize, that you cannot heal yourself in addiction. That again, Bhushan will tell you about. And therefore, you have to turn to a good friend. What are the world statistics? Just imagine. Opiates, 91% of people lose their lives, and they keep on relapsing. Meth, 90%, alcohol, 75%. It is improving now because there is a beautiful methodology about which Bhushan and Prachi will tell you. It's a fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. And this is very, very helpful. In London, there is also an SLA. SLA stands for Sex and Love Addict Anonymous. So sometimes we have also people who have a dual addiction, both alcohol, drugs, and sex. So one has to be very careful. Then benzodiazepines and then cocaine, relapse rate is so high. So here we come. Our children need our love. I-thou relationship is what is required. And if they don't have it from their own family, there are fellowships that can help people who are stuck in addiction. Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous is what Bhushan and his beloved wife Prachi will talk about. There has to be a paradigm shift in approach to child protection. This is very important because the social juvenile justice system is really interested in helping so many children, street children, sadak ke bacche. I work in Dharavi, and I wish some of you can volunteer. The foreign youth come and work with me, but our Indian youth are a little reserved. Come and see the state of these children in Dharavi. They have they are longing for love, and so if you want to have really welfare for children, then you have to see that they have some process to develop themselves. Institutional and residential care for children is not ideal. Today, if you send a person, a minor, to a reformatory school, my goodness, he will come back, she will come back with so many new evil things that he has learned in the so-called residential care. So non-institutional and family-based alternative projects. But this is difficult. We have a couple in our family systems, Al-Anon and families. We have a beautiful couple. They were telling us about their son being an addiction. And then suddenly they blurted out, but he's our adopted child. And my goodness, everybody in the group responded to that. And we made them realize that that adopted child is coming from a trauma of being rejected. And when they change their attitude, the boy has come on to recovery. So, it's very important that we restore their sense of family, I-thou relationship. Instead of custodial care, holistic development through quality child care in institutions. There are institutions that offer holistic development. Instead of segregating them and isolating them from society, you have to include them and mainstreaming in society. But this, I have to be very careful. In Canada, one of our Indian couples whose son was prone to commit crime, the Canadian police gave him a choice to go into an isolation or a last chance to be with his parents. Very sad to tell you, he murdered both his parents. So, this crime and addiction and the criminal component in addiction is so dangerous. I know you have seen recently, there was a young girl who was murdered. These are everyday cases that are happening next to us. And then when my daughter or when my cousin or when my child says, no, that boy is okay. He may be a bad fellow, but with me, he's okay. One fine day, murder. See, you have to be very careful of when I say inclusion in the mainline. Then child being a beneficiary and recipient of services. When you give too many services, it sometimes can be counterproductive. There were 25 children that were adopted by Luxembourg from Mother Teresa's home. Every child turned an addict or a prostitute, except one. So 24 children went into addiction and prison. Then they came back to us and we did a study on this as to how to prevent this. Because they were given, coming from a poor country, they went into a rich country. They were given what they wanted. The king baby syndrome grew. And most probably they were children also of addicts and prostitutes. So that ended up with a whole lot of uncontrollable urge to stop. See, I have to give Bhushan and Prachi sufficient time so that we can have questions and answers also. So there are different stages of problem children, whether they are street-based, whether they come from slums, whether they are school-going and all that. There are different stages of how we can bring them back to love and to society. There are beautiful programs that we have within the Kripa model. And you can see there that there are even, when the Joint Commissioner, I won't mention his name, when there was a policeman who had raped a girl in Bombay, he suddenly took a survey and there were 90 police people who very truthfully said, yes, we would like to know more about alcoholism. And so 90 of them in groups of 30, we gave them and so many of them thanked us because they said, we didn't realize that we could have been, uska hum bhi shikar ban sakte the, that we could also be victims of that. So somebody who was very dear to, very well known to Julio, and but I'll tell him only after the program. He did this program and still does the program, still sends people who have been suspected for having an addiction to alcohol to rehab to a center like us. What is the model? I think I'll leave this model to be explained by Bhushan to take over. And I will only make you aware that when Bhushan and Prachi is talking, what is their backbone of their recovery? Simple. Just admit, don't deny, admit that we are powerless over our substance, over our behavior, and our lives have become unmanageable. Second step is have a faith factor. Come to believe that you can't do it alone. You need the help of a person, like by way of a sponsor or a group, a very important component of coming every day for a self-help group. They will tell you about it. Then you have to make a decision to turn your wayward will, self-will running riot is addiction. You have to turn it over to the care of God. Then you have a kind of a process of cleansing, introspection and seeing how one has to take responsibility. We've always been blaming and taking drugs. Now we have to take responsibility, and that leads us to also making that disclosure to a very trusted person in the program. Then we work on our character defects, which are the 6th and 7th step. And then we make up with people with whom we have broken relationships in the 8th and 9th step. And we do this program one day at a time. Because the God of my understanding said, sufficient for the day is the evil thereof. So one day at a time, and how? Sought through prayer and meditation. And that is where I brought in Iyengar Yoga, because the body never tells lies. And for Guruji, every asana was a prayer, because the body is the temple of God. And so when you have that authentic connection with the Antaryaman, with the indwelling spirit within your body, coping with these kind of evils is much easier. And never keep it to yourself. Always, having had a spiritual awakening, one goes and shares it with other people. Thank you very much. May I invite, we have Pushan here. So may I invite Pushan to there, he's already there. So Pushan, I give you, you have heard me, the youngsters are our ambassadors. You know, you have been for 40 years, I have been for 40 years. And these are young ambassadors. They are enthusiastic to do so much in other fields. We can attract them to prevent more and more people going into addiction. Over to you, Pushan, and then to your wife, Prachi.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Father. It's a pleasure being here. Good evening, friends. My name is Pushan, and I am an alcoholic. So you will wonder, this guy looks sober. He doesn't look drunk. He looks quite well behaved, well dressed. And why is he calling himself an alcoholic? My dear friends, I want to tell you that alcoholism or drug addiction or nicotine addiction, any of these addictions, these are very easily comparable to chronic illnesses like diabetes or blood pressure. So once you develop this addiction, then it is possible to take care of yourself, to control yourself, but it's not possible to go back to normal drinking or go back to absolutely non-addiction status. So my last drink was on 22nd November 1991. That is almost 30 years ago. After that, I haven't had a drink, but still I'm here today with you because I want to tell all my friends who are like me, who are on that slide, on that slope going down, and who don't know what's happening to them and who need help and who want to come out of it or who want to help their friends come out of it. There are about 200 odd friends here available today. I'm sure each one of you at least know 3 or 4 people with a drinking problem, at least 1 person with a drug problem, and at least 10 people with nicotine problem. But you don't know what to do about them. You don't know where to go. You don't know how to reach, you don't know whether to even approach them or whether to confront them. I can understand. And now I'm going to tell you why this happens. So I just to give my story in a very, very small, brief nutshell, I was born to a typical Maharashtrian middle-class family. My dad was a judge and he had a transferable job. So every year, 2 years, he would get transferred. And I was in school that time. And along with him, I was also moving around everywhere. So like from 1st to 10th standard, I had to change 10 schools. Now, even though some of you might say that it must have been an exciting childhood, I would say, no, it wasn't. It was largely a lonely and maladjusted childhood. So like I had this high-ranking government servant as my dad. So our bungalows used to be always away from the city and we never had friends. And by the time I made friends in school, it was always again time to get transferred. So by the time I made friends, it was time to lose those friends. So very early in my life, by about 7th or 8th standard, I realized there is no point of making friends or being vulnerable or loving your friends, because it causes you pain. When you have to leave that place, it causes you pain. So I became a self-talker. I used to talk a lot to myself. I used to write a lot. I used to think to myself. I used to sing. I used to do all things where I was kind of self-sufficient, where I would not need people. And that made me introvert. That made me shy. That I had a lot of ideas about what I should be like, but what I was totally different. And on top of that, when we came to Mumbai, I had come from a vernacular school. I had come from a vernacular medium school. And I had this great complex about speaking in English. And we went to stay in Colaba, where all my friends, they were from Campion, Cathedral, and hi, hello, that culture, and parties and discos. And, that was the time. I felt that I didn't belong, and I wanted to have that sense of belonging. I wanted to have friends. I wanted to be acknowledged. I wanted to be, treated as one. So when I was introduced to alcohol, the first experience, I was a little skeptical. I was afraid. I didn't know, because I had seen people lose their control. I had seen people drink and sleep on the street and lose control, and I didn't want to do any of that. But there was always this curiosity about, because I had seen my dad have a drink or two, and I knew he was otherwise a very stern kind of a fellow, very disciplinarian guy. And after having a couple of drinks, he used to be very jolly, very, very jovial, very, occasionally I had seen him sing or even dance. And I was wondering, what is this? What is this amber colored liquid, which when consumed, transforms you from a serious person into a fun-loving person? I was always curious to know that. And so when I got my first exposure to alcohol, and when I realized that I was in this party, and it was my brother's party, all elder students were there, and suddenly I felt as if I belonged there. That day, I lost my inhibitions. I lost my fear. I sang with them. I danced with them, and I cracked jokes. And everybody said, Pushan, you are such a great guy. Yaar. I mean, where were you? Why weren't you there in our parties earlier? Even my brother was surprised, Pushan, like how? I mean, we didn't know you had so much in you. Forget my brother, forget his friends. Even I didn't know I had so much in me. I could forget myself. I could get over my complexes and be natural. I never knew that. And that day, I decided that alcohol is that chemical which makes me forget my fear, which makes me forget my awkwardness, which makes me forget my shyness, which makes me courageous. And I loved that chemical. I liked that effect. And so next time when I went to drink, when I told other friends of mine that let's try this, I neither had liked the taste, nor had I liked the smell, nor did I have the money those days to go and buy alcohol. But friends, the effect was so magical. And if I wanted to get that effect again and again, then I had to make arrangements. I had to make sacrifices elsewhere to make arrangements for this substance. And so I started choosing alcohol over other pleasures of that age. Slowly, in a couple of years, I became very friendly with alcohol. And when you become friends, you lose, the first thing is you lose fear of your, of unknown quantity. So I lost fear of alcohol. Now I knew I had tried various forms of alcohol. I had tried drinking at different times, and before dinner, after dinner, before lunch, after lunch, on Sundays, on picnics, in a party. So now I was experimenting with alcohol in different social settings, in different time settings, friendship settings. And everywhere, alcohol proved to be doing for me that which I couldn't do for myself. Obviously, in a couple of years' time, I fell absolutely in love with alcohol. Now, when you are in love with anyone, what happens? When you wake up first thing in the morning, you think of that person. And the last thought before you sleep, you are thinking about that person. Now, similar things started happening to me about my alcohol. When I woke up in the mornings, I used to think, where will I get to drink today? Who can I catch? Where will I sit? How will I arrange the money? Which friends can I invite today? Or if I don't have money, where can I source that money? So the thinking, the pre-thinking, pre-alcohol thinking started right from morning. And then the anticipation increased till evening to that point that by evening, I could hardly wait. It used to be like, a long lost friend meeting me after a long time. So when I actually got a glass in my mind, it was like the long wait was over. And every time anybody who talked about my drinking, by now my frequency and quantity of drinking had gone up substantially. And when friends used to tell me, Pushan, yaar, jada pita hai tu. And I used to tell them, mind your own business, yaar. Mera quota jada hai. My stamina is better. And just don't bother. I am not asking you to pay for my drink. So you stay away. So I started again. Now remember, I had started drinking to socialize. I had started drinking to belong. But now the same drinking started making me exclusive. I only started drinking with people who drank similar to me or higher quantities or every day. I started avoiding people who didn't drink. I started avoiding going to parties or relatives who didn't serve alcohol. So now I formed a relationship with alcohol, and it was a very intimate and personal relationship. And very soon, in a couple of years of this love affair with alcohol, my body tolerance increased substantially. I could consume large quantities of alcohol and I could hold myself. I thought I have a great stamina and I used to boast about that stamina. I remember in my final year post-graduation exams, there was one subject which was really very difficult. And for 3 days non-stop, I was making small pegs, drinking and studying, drinking and studying, drinking and studying. And finally, I got a first class in that paper. So by now, I had full conviction that alcohol is good for me. It gives me concentration. It gives me the ability to do things which in my normal self, I won't be able to do. So by now, I started trusting alcohol. There was faith. I believed in alcohol. I felt that there was no problem that me and my alcohol will not be able to solve together. So I tried using alcohol in my relationship. When I proposed to my girlfriend, I was already down a couple of pegs. When I went for my job interviews, I went with a slight intoxication. For making presentations, corporate presentations, when I got a job, I used to take a drink or two, just enough to bolster my confidence. In parties, I was, of course, the life of the party. I used to crack jokes and I used to sing and I used to dance and I used to do everything, and all with the help of alcohol. So alcohol became my companion all through my life, all activities of my life. Obviously, drinking went very high. And when it went to that point where the physical stamina and tolerance went so high, that slowly, my hunger started reducing. And then the body started becoming weaker. And then the negative effects of alcohol started showing in my life. Loss of control, sleeping in trains, getting robbed at night, fighting, doing things which I didn't want to do, saying things which I didn't want to say. Then by that time I had gotten married and there was a lot of family pressure to stop drinking. So there was conflict at home, there was financial trouble, there was social trouble, there was career trouble, and every which way now I was sinking. I was caught in a quicksand. I was going down and down and down and I couldn't help it. And I didn't know what to do. And I felt that whenever I was in a problem, alcohol always brought me out. So every time, even if the problem was induced by alcohol, I was using alcohol to cope with it. So I was sinking further and further and faster to the point of oblivion. And then I became completely isolated, completely lonely. I could not work anymore. I could not be a good father, a good husband, good child. I could not be a good friend, a good worker, or even a good citizen of the world. I was incapable of staying in this community as an effective citizen of this community. So when I reached that point, desperate measures started happening and people started trying to get help for me. And finally, I met a psychiatrist who told me, friend, I can treat your body, but I cannot treat this insane fascination for alcohol. I cannot treat this love, this crazy love you have developed for alcohol. So for this, you need help. For you need three-dimensional help. You need physical help to stop drinking. You need mental help to stay stopped. And you need spiritual help to live a better life. And all this three-dimensional support you will get in a fellowship called Alcoholics Anonymous. So on doctor's advice, I went to Alcoholics Anonymous and I started making meetings and I started meeting other people who were like me. And slowly, slowly, with the help of the program that Father Joe just now mentioned, the 12-step recovery program. In this program, it began with surrender. I had to admit that I can't stop with my own willpower. I need external help. I need a power greater than me. It could be people who love me. It could be a God of my understanding from my religion, or it could be nature. It could be sun. It could be the wind. It could be the water. It could be any good force which if I depended on to help me. So with the help of this power greater than me and with the help of my surrender and with the help of analysis of where I had gone wrong, what had gone wrong with my life, I am now willing to live a new life. And in this new life, it meant a correction of my earlier behaviors. It meant being alert and aware. It meant talking about my problems and not keeping everything in my mind and opening up and sharing and taking help wherever possible. It meant rebuilding of lost relationships. It meant making amends to people whom I had hurt and rebuilding of my lost, position from society, from my family, from my loved ones. And then it was about trying to remain alert and looking at my life on a day-to-day basis every day that I don't fall into my addictive behaviors. So Father Joe very beautifully talked about multiple types of addictions, largely divided into substance abuse and behavioral addictions. So right now we are talking mainly about substance abuse. That means nicotine, drugs, alcohol, or anything that you can use or abuse your body with. And then there are behavioral addictions like internet addictions, gambling addictions, love addiction, sex addiction, or various other thought-related addictions. So these two are different kinds of addictions. And for that, there are 100 different fellowships right now, self-help groups, which are working in India and abroad, in online or in physical or in hybrid platforms. So whenever you feel that you have a problem or your problem seems to be escalating or that you are becoming uncomfortable, we ask, the first question we ask is, are you feeling restless, irritable, and discontented? If you are restless because of your addiction, if you are irritable, because if you don't get that addiction, you will tend to be irritable. You want a quick fix. If you don't get it, you will be irritable and you will be discontented. You will be dissatisfied with life. You will be dissatisfied. You will have lost purpose and focus of your life. Somebody had told me very beautifully, the state of existential emptiness. I don't know anymore what I want to be. You land up in that state. You live only minute to minute. मेरे को अगला सिगरेट चाहिए, मेरे को अगला ड्रिंक चाहिए, मेरे को अगला ड्रग चाहिए और उसके लिए मैं जिंदा हूँ. I have no longer any dreams left for my life. I don't have any aspiration of making a good career, or I don't care about my wife or my mother or my father or my brother. I want what I want and I want it now. That's what Father Joe talked about, King Baby syndrome. And if you have landed up in that kind of mindset, probably you are already needing help. Because the recent Cochrane review that was published, that spoke about maximum addictions being introduced from the age group of 12 to 18, and you all my friends are in that age group. So when you take that first smoke, or that first tobacco chew, or that gutka, or that first glass of beer, at that time you never know how this is going to shape your future. When I had my first glass of beer, I never knew that I'll be an alcoholic. I never wanted to be an alcoholic. I know so many friends who, when they smoked their first hash cigarette or shared a drag, never knew that they will become full-blown drug addicts. They never knew that. They always thought, "मैं ये कभी भी छोड़ सकता हूँ." My friends, the best thing to do is quit while you can. Quit while you are ahead. अगर आपने शुरुआत की भी है, तो time to stop is today. And if you are not being able to stop, if you are failing, if you feel that your willpower is falling short, don't be afraid, don't be shy to ask for help, because your problem has already started. You don't have to become a street drunk. You don't have to lose your home. You don't have to lose your liver. You don't have to lose your job or your school admission. No, friends, it can be very easily treated and arrested, provided you are willing and eager to take help. And I will stop here right now with a simple message that help is available everywhere. Just if you type alcoholism or drug addiction, there are lakhs and lakhs of pages will open up on internet. And if you ask for self-help groups on addiction, you will get hundreds of groups possible who will provide you help completely anonymously. I'm sure many of you might be having parents, mother or father or brother or uncle who with a drinking problem or with a drug problem or with a nicotine problem, and you can help them also anonymously by reporting them. We will not quote your name. We will not refer to you. We will simply reach out to these people and tell them our stories. If it attracts them, if it appeals to them, if they want to help themselves, they're most welcome to join us, and it's absolutely free of cost. So all the best, my friends. You, like Father Joe said, are our ambassadors for this cause. You are the youth of our country. If it's not for you, first be aware and alert yourself. And whenever you spot addiction anywhere nearby, just don't be afraid to report it. Thank you very much. See you soon. Thank you, Father Joe.
Thank you, Bhushan. Does Prachi want to say a word?
Yeah, good evening, friends, and good evening, Father Joe. I would like to just add a little few. I hope I can do that.
Yes, please do.
Yeah. Well, Bhushan is my partner, my loved one, and he's an alcoholic. I will be talking from the other side of other aspect of it. Well, I, being from a very orthodox family, did not even know what it is to smoke a cigarette or drink alcohol or any of that kind. But when I came and became friends with Bhushan, I knew he used to drink, I knew he used to smoke, and I always thought it was fine, it was stylish, it was, fashion, and I was okay with it. But as our friendship grew into love, and when we decided to get married, also, I knew that he used to drink a lot, but not how much, what was the quantity. And well, I thought, okay, once we get married, all these things will sort out and all. And the minute we got married, I realized that I am in trouble, because he used to smoke a lot and drink every day. He may have decided that once he stops, once he gets married, he will end his bachelorhood life and get into normal, like family type of life. But probably because of his addiction, he did not know that he's not going to be able to stop. And the minute I came to know that this is what the problem is, it was like 24 hours, I decided to think as to how to stop him from drinking. I made it my goal, my only, thing to do for me was to stop him drinking. So this alcoholism is called as a family disease. The family, whether it is a wife or the children or the parents, they also get dragged into it, because 24 hours when he's thinking of drinking, 24 hours I am thinking how to stop him drinking. So I did all what I could to stop him from drinking. And in the bargain, there was so much of effect on my mental health, my physical health, on my family life, on my relationship with my in-laws, with my parents, with my society. I was so fearful. I used to never get out of the house before it was dark because I couldn't face anybody. And I used to always think that somebody will blame me for his drinking. I didn't want to show my face in the society to be called as a wife of a drunk. So that's how my mental trauma started. And it went on to such a height that I didn't want to live. I wanted to end my life. I didn't want to be called a drunk's wife. I did not want to relate myself with people. I could not live under the same roof with the same person who I had fallen in love with. That's how the desperation becomes 24 hours when you think of stopping somebody to drink and hide his drink or pour his drink. That's how the effect goes. And well, very soon I realized that I would not be able to continue like this. I needed help. Initially you feel, why the hell do I need help? He's drinking. If he stops drinking, all my life's problems will solve. But that's not it. The trauma that has been caused onto your mental and physical health, you need help for yourself. The way Pushan mentioned that the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous helped him, there is a Fellowship of Al-Anon, which is meant for family and loved ones of an alcoholic, where they, through experience, hope, and strength, empower us and make us understand that we are not the cause of his alcoholism. So if we are not the cause, it is a disease that has affected him. I am not the cause. So if it is not the cause, I cannot help control it. I cannot help cure it. So my insane fascination to control it and make him a better person, cure it, make him rid of the disease, I had to get out of it. And I had to stop controlling and curing it. So I realized I'm not the cause. I cannot control, I cannot cure. And now I have to focus on myself and rebuild my relationship with the same person if I want to live under the same roof. So he started his program on AA. I started my program of Al-Anon. I'm on the Al-Anon program for the last 30 years. And both of us, when we had reached a state where we didn't want to live with each other at all, we wanted to divorce, we wanted to separate, even though we had a small baby. But both of us, with the help of these programs, rebuild our life together. And well, we are living a happy, peaceful, contented life with the help of both our self-help programs. That is Alcoholics Anonymous and the Al-Anon family groups. So thank you very much for giving me a chance to inform about my life and how I have changed my life living with the same alcoholic. Thank you, Father Joe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prachi. Thank you, Prachi. Over to you, Abuzel. You would like to invite people to ask us questions?
Thank you, Father Joe, Mr. Pushan, and Mrs. Prachi for sensitizing us on this issue with your wise words. Father Joe, with your permission, we would like to proceed with the next phase, that is Q&A session. Participants, you may drop your questions in the chat box so that Father may address those.
While others are coming up with questions, recently we had done a similar program for school children, and we were talking about internet addiction. And somebody asked a question, how do I know if I am addicted? So, Father, maybe you would like to address this question. How do I know whether my use is use or abuse?
Yeah, it's a diagnostic question. Very, very difficult. I think, Pushan, you attempt to answer that because you have gone through it. There's a period of insensitivity and complete denial. youngsters, when you tell them that be careful, you're going into it. This morning when I was walking up the hill, I saw a young, he must be about not even 12 years old. And he was with all the time with the mobile. And I said, son boy, please, when you're walking, don't use the mobile. He was going to school. And his mother came and joined him and said, it's okay, they use this. So see, we have to be careful that these habits that are known sometimes to be harmless can turn suddenly harmful. And any other, how do you know? Well, ask your loved one. You find my use becoming an abuse. If your loved one, and if you can be humble enough to ask somebody that, somebody has made a remark that I'm turning to be an addict. If you have the humility to ask somebody to check that I am really going into it, I think that's the best way to get out. Bhushan, you can respond to that.
Certainly. Yes, Father. So there are many tests available on the internet where you can check right from 4 questions, 5 questions to 20 questions or even more to know if your addiction is causing distress in your life. But a simple thing is, has my addiction, whatever it is, or my use or abuse, has it become compulsive and obsessive? So obsessive is, am I continuously thinking about it? Do I have to, continuously tear myself away from my addiction to be functional? So if it is obsessive and if it is compulsive, then you are already into a problem. But if you are in the early stages of a problem, where the diagnostic, like Father said, then there are multiple tests available for each of these addictions. Just go to the internet and ask yourself, how do I know if I'm addicted? And you will have sets of questionnaires which will tell you the level of addictions and dependence you have already developed.
If there are no more questions, then I would now like to invite District Coordinator of NSS Mumbai City, Ms. Kranti Uke, to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Warm good evening to everyone present here on the virtual platform. It's my privilege and honor to present the formal vote of thanks for the webinar on substance abuse, prevention and control organized by PCGT in collaboration with NSSL University of Mumbai. As a district coordinator, it's my duty to thank each one of them who have taken efforts in the smooth organization and execution of this webinar. First and foremost, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Father Joe Pereira, for his enlightening and insightful address on prevention and control of substance abuse. I'm sure that today's webinar has been an eye-opener for the youngsters, for the youth of the country, and made them sure not to indulge in drug consumption. Thank you so much once again, Father, for your wonderful talk and for gracing this occasion today. I would also like to thank Mr. Pushan and Mrs. Prachi for narrating their own story about how they have overcome, how they have come a long way to get rid of this problem. Thank you so much once again, Mr. Pushan and Mrs. Prachi. I would also like to thank Shri Julio Ribeiro, sir, for always being instrumental in organizing very useful programs for our youth. I would like to thank the support and cooperation rendered by our Honorable Director and Registrar, University of Mumbai, Shri Sudhir Puranik, sir. Program Officer, NSSL, University of Mumbai, Shri Ramesh Devkar, sir. OSD and District Coordinator, Western Zone, Shri Sushil Shinde, sir, for their constant support and guidance. I thank the whole team of PCGT, especially Raj and Ruchi, for taking all the efforts for this webinar. I would also like to thank all the program officers for encouraging their volunteers to join the program in large numbers. I also thank Mr. Abu Zaid for the very wonderful hosting of this program. Thank you so much. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all our NSS volunteers for participating in this webinar enthusiastically and for being the wonderful audience. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kranti ma'am, for your kind words. I would request all the participants to turn their camera on for a group picture. Raj sir, Ruchi ma'am.
Yeah, we are taking it. Done. Thank you.
Participants, please note there is a feedback form posted in the chat box. Please fill it carefully with only your first name and last name. There will be no alterations in this certificate.
The feedback form is in the WhatsApp group, so please go and fill it there.
I would request the host to end the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Julio.
Thank you, Father.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Bhushan.
Thank you,
Your
sir.
wife.
Thank you, Father.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Father.